Okay, we are live. I am Speed of Sound. Who are you guys?
You want to go first, Immutable?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So, my name is Immutable. I come on occasionally, give my opinion, and then fuck off. So.
Yep.
All right. I guess it's my turn. I am Walking Fish, also known as Walker. This is my first time speaking live on anything, so that's kind of cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, never been on any other channels or anything like that.
We'll break you in. We encourage swearing here, or cursing, as the Standing for Truth Brain Trust calls it.
Good. I've been caught up too much at home, so swearing's been off limits too much. So I am excited for that.
We'll try to bring you up to speed. So,
yeah.
I come from northern Minnesota, where swearing is your first language and English is your second language. So,
fair enough.
Let's see. Okay, so this guy. Now, it's a video he did last night, but I thought this was kind of cool. The first part, Jason Ezard. Oh, wait a minute. I screwed up, didn't I?
The sound is not on right now.
Didn't hear the audio for the video, Mike.
I thought my production guy was supposed to remind me to turn the audio on, but no. Let's see. Treated by rational thought. I got this going. I mean, this is polished. Let's see. Is it going to work? You think it's going to work?
I don't know.
Because I haven't set everything up. Sometimes I hate myself, as I'm sure everyone else does too.
I mean, I'm glad you said it and not me.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're good. I think it'll actually. Let's see if you can hear it.
You hang around atheists, you're more likely to get ripped off and screwed over. You hang around Christians, you still could get ripped off.
Whoops, we got another problem. Production quality is really
I'm wondering where he gets his economic advice from, because.
Wait, that's Faithful, Honest, and True, right?
No, that's Jason. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Jason,
I was saying like that's his handle. Yeah.
Right.
And screwed over, but you got a better chance of not getting ripped off and screwed over, and probably not as much. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's people think, because Christians this and Christians. Well, Christians can be little scumbags as well, but some of them. But it's you got a better chance. That's let me put it that way. You know, like if I was gonna. Yeah, I'll never do that now. I'm too old and it's too late. The majority of people out there are just out to get you. And the majority of people out there are just out to get you. And what I'll say is this to people is, you hang around atheists. They can actually learn about.
All those bookmarks I did. I got bookmark software.
Even Christian schools to teach evolution. Otherwise, they'll defund them.
Wow. Let's see, he talks about homeschooling.
Got a better chance of not getting ripped off and screwed over, and probably not as much. You know what I mean? Yep. Like it's people think because Christians this and Christians.
Can we just get like a poll for the people that Jim Jones killed and how they feel about him ripping them off?
Or those
since we're appealing to reality now,
or Waco, or
Sorry.
Okay, my bookmarks. I've got a bookmark program. Obviously, it doesn't work very well because it's not going to the same bookmarks. So,
well, Christians can be little scumbags as well, but some of them. But it's real science instead of.
I'm trying to get to the school
now
part.
You're saying the exact opposite, and this is going to be great. This will work. Like that's kind of funny. On that change, I'm actually interested to see what percentage of people realize, wow, this is actually working. My kid's learning so much, and I'm getting to spend more time with them.
They can actually learn about real science instead of learning about a fairy tale about how some amoeba creature turned into a what do they call it?
Man, what is their obsession with
amphibian and
amoebas?
crawled out of the
I don't
water
know.
and then turned into this, that, and the other, all the way up to an ape. You know what I mean? And then a man. And instead of learning about fairy tales like that, which have no basis in science whatsoever, then they could actually learn about real science. Now that would be a turn up for the books, wouldn't it? I mean, just to actually learn about real science and just leave all the assumptions out. Teach about what we know to be factual science. Teach them about medical science, about plants and animals, and
Isn't that great? And he also said he if they made him publicly school his kids, that he'd sue the government if they tried to teach him evolution. So
Yeah.
because in Australia apparently it's the law that you teach evolution. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's probably the biggest.
Go ahead.
I was just saying that's probably the biggest problem with homeschooling in America, at least, is like there's no oversight, and it's the same thing with like private schools here, especially like in rural South Alabama. Let's go. There's just no oversight of any of these schooling types.
Right. Yeah, they don't have any reach unless it's public school, and they were making a point, I think, before this, that basically people were complaining about homeschooling, and now they're not because of COVID. We're all doing it.
Yeah, fair enough.
And they're finding out that it works rather well. Well, it works well if you have good curriculum, if you're teaching the kids real science, as they put it.
But so this leads me to question, do these people think that like medicine has no reliance upon evolutionary theory?
Oh, that's coming up. Okay, that's coming up. We should listen for a little while. There's a piece on junk DNA here, and it's kind of cool how they
biology, real biology, not evolutionary fairy tale imagined. This is the way we think it wished it happened in the past stuff, and evolution's actually holding children back, because no surgeon ever went to a book of evolutionary origins before a complicated surgery that he hadn't done for a while to brush up on his surgical techniques. It's like to get it's just evolution is the most useless steaming pile of cow dung that there ever was. It's totally anti-science. It holds science back. It's got nothing to do, you know what I mean? Like you go and have your religion, have your belief, go and believe in God, believe in this, believe in that, but learn about real biology, real science that saves lives and helps people. Don't get sucked into this lie where people say, and this just makes me laugh, the evolutionists I've been debating, and they've said, well, it's because of evolution they made this medical discovery, and I'm just like, and here's the citation to prove it, and it's just like, you read it, you just feel like they're completely, they got no idea. I'm not going to say what I really think, otherwise you'd get channel banned.
I honestly wonder how many discoveries have been made in spite of the methods that they're using, right?
Okay.
You think about
what does that mean, in spite of evolution? In the attempt to prove evolution wrong? Like without you trying to use evolutionary theory as a framework?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Maybe surgeons aren't brushing up on their evolution or anything like that, but evolution has implications in like epidemiology, virology, like all of these other like disease-based sciences. Surgeons, they cut the stuff out, right? And I guess the structures that they're cutting out are homologous to structures in other organisms, but for the most part, yeah, they're not super heavily based in like evolutionary sciences. But things like pneumonia, things like cancer, like these are constantly evolving things, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and the
like
tumor.
Go ahead.
Okay, the tumor suppressor gene that I've been reading about, basically most of the discoveries they made about it have been through comparative genomics.
Mm-hmm.
And they would not have done that if it hadn't been for taking an evolutionary perspective and trying to work out the phylogenies of these genes. And they're finding right down to familial genomic studies. I mean, it's just an extension to go back in the phylogeny, and they trace this gene all the way back to prokaryotes. And all of that is very important because it tells them what parts of the protein, what parts of the gene cause these mutations that turn into cancer. And it's been key in understanding how this gene works. But I think they get worse here. We'll play it out and then we'll have a talk about this science bullshit here.
Evolutionary algorithms and the just incredible amount of computer processing power, human brain power that is spent trying to figure out what would have had to have happened in order for this to go from this to this.
Mate, can you imagine? They put all that money and energy into actual science and actually helping people and, you know, educating people around the world and doing, you know, can you imagine? Just think of the billions that's just wasted on this rubbish. There's trillions, probably. There's probably thousands of billions of dollars that have been wasted on this, trillions and trillions of dollars. Can you imagine what that would have done and how much good that could have done in other areas?
Well,
than just trying to prove that a dinosaur walked the earth 65 million years ago.
Is he saying they didn't?
I think about
that is okay. That is like one of the most important statements I think I've heard coming out of their mouth.
Yep.
Is he saying is he trying to say dinosaurs aren't real? Because I've heard that from creationists before, but not like internet creationists.
Oh, they believe they're real, but they walked with man.
Oh, okay.
They weren't hundreds of millions of years old. I don't know if you knew this or not, but this guy on the right here, where my cursor or left, where my cursor is, I think he cured cancer, and this guy here cured polio. I mean, these guys have done some really good work in medicine. They'll probably explain it to us shortly.
About that on a very regular basis when I'm reading papers on discoveries, medical discoveries. Now they have started to
paper.
What's that?
Translation. When I read the abstract of a paper and don't understand it.
Yeah, he said something about perusing papers a couple of times in this video, and I'm like, where the hell are your sources, Maddox? I mean, he mentioned a couple things that I would like to read about, but he never provides his papers. I'm trying to be better than that. You'll notice that I do update some of my descriptions. So, let's see. Do we have...
very actively consider quote unquote junk DNA as,
here we go,
you know, primary causes for so many different diseases. And I'm like, okay, so yeah, obviously people, you know, go back and forth on how much time it's been since the shift to people starting to, you know, view it as worthwhile. But it's reasonable to conclude there's been no less than 30 to 40 years of time where that portion of the genome was not being considered from a medical perspective. No less than 30 or 40 years, right?
Okay. So there it is. So they're claiming that going back 40 years or, you know, to 1970 or whatever, that no one was looking at genetics for causing diseases, basically, or nobody would, like, we were just looking at the parts that were active. Well, guess what? We didn't have the goddamn genome mapped
until like the 90s, right? Oh, early 2000s, late 90s.
Early 2000s, when we had a complete gene map, and there was nothing preventing anybody from researching any disease in any part of a genome. And this is this myth they have that somehow evolutionists had to have junk DNA, and that prevented medicine from. Well, they go on here. Listen a little bit more.
Well, it's also important to note that the sequencing methods for genomes at that time is less accurate than the methods currently used to sequence genomes, which are significantly better.
Right.
Yeah, and also it's ignoring the fact that like things that are generally considered junk DNA, regions that are non-coding, stuff like that, can be subjected to transcription if like a transcriptional activator is somehow switched on through like acetylation or something, right? So like genes that are generally turned off and generally considered junk can still come on and like do bad stuff.
Right. Most of the early studies were done by looking at the proteome, which proteins were created, which transcripts and which RNAs were created, because they had access to a lot of that. We hadn't sequenced the genome yet. And it wasn't until after we sequenced the genome that the talk of junk DNA came up in the popular literature, because then we realized, holy shit, this is really long and there's not a whole lot of coding sequences. So that's where it became popular. But they're implying that like evolutionists needed junk DNA back in 1910 or something, and that prevented medicine from working. It's just it's all in their heads. I mean, they're making up this massive story about this evil group of evolution. It reminds me of a fucking Netflix movie. I mean, it's like they've been watching Netflix too much. They've been watching The Flash or whatever, and they have all these like evil plots by corporations and evil evolutionists.
Yeah, well, I think that's the only way that you can justify creationism, I guess, is if you either think evolutionists are like evil and lying,
right,
or if they're just idiots. Like those are really your only two options, because there's so, like they said, there's trillions of dollars probably being invested into this stuff since, the 1900s. Like, these are huge subfields of science that we either have to have a huge conspiracy of liars or a huge amount of idiots with PhDs.
Yeah. And it's all been driven by money and pharmaceuticals and trying to cure disease. And they're claiming in this little piece right here, they're claiming that if it hadn't been for evolution, we would have cured cancer. Well, I think they say as much, cured cancer 40 years ago.
When you look at the discoveries they've been making, just in the last 5 years, really since the ENCODE project as an example. So 8 years at this point, right?
Actually, since the genome got mapped, asshole.
When you look at all the things they've been able to figure out just in the last 8 years, if you extrapolate that back 40 years, I mean, how much further along would we be in understanding disease? I mean, I would wager it's almost an incalculable difference and amount of discoveries that could have been made in advancements overall. Because I mean, just things I'm constantly reading these papers and I'm just like, wow.
They could have killed all.
ENCODE was really interesting.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, ENCODE was a really interesting study, but I don't think it had too many like wide-bearing implications. And it's a lot of the claims about it being like, 80% functionality. First of all, 80% is not 100%. You still have 20% that even by creationist standards would be junk. And still, there's been so many refutations of the transcriptional activity being an indication of like usefulness and like reliance on specific sequences, right?
Right. There's spurious transcription all of the time.
Yeah,
because it is a stochastic process. And then and even I don't even know how they dared to say 80. Well, 23% of the genome is introns.
Mm-hmm.
Inside of the introns, which are fairly long, there are a couple of signal spots. There's one adenosine that has to be there in order for the splicing to work. And there's a couple other little nucleotides, but mostly the intron is up for grabs. And we can tell that because they mutate like hell. They mutate real fast, even between members of our own species. Probably between your right arm and your left arm, you could do a map and you'd find massive variation in the introns.
Yeah.
And so there's 23% right there. So now we're down to 77%. So I don't know where. I did reach out to ENCODE, and they emailed me back, and they said a couple of things. The first thing they said was that, referring to creationists, they basically said when you mud wrestle pigs, the pig has fun, and you just get dirty.
Is that a direct quote?
Yes, that's what, and that was from somebody whose name I will not share, but it was in the ENCODE project. And the other thing he told me is we no longer use the word functional. They haven't for some time because they got their asses kicked on it. I mean, it was, they were excited. They have a hell of a good project. They're mapping out a tremendous, tremendous amount of transcription, and some of these things, like even if it's a very minor amount of transcription, can result in some sort of disease, and that's the problem. It's because the junk is being converted it's being transcribed that causes some diseases, and that's what they're looking for. ENCODE was never out to prove evolution or disprove evolution one way or the other. It's just complete misunderstanding of what they're doing. They have very, very accurate chip arrays, basically these arrays of different transcripts that they can find very low hits, which is kind of cool. So anyway, I think it gets worse.
Everything. They could have cured all cancers, all diseases.
There you go.
I mean, if they put all their time, energy, and money instead of into that garbage, and they put it into, like, as these new mutations pop up, like, asthma's a mutation, all different types of cancers. When these new mutations pop up, then they can kill them. You know what I mean? Then they could work on it and kill it. But what do? No, it's more important to find out that we, evolved from a amoeba or whatever the hell it is. And
it's.
So it's somehow, it's shocking how he thinks that these two topics aren't related somehow.
Right.
That evolution occurs without the passing on of genes, and somehow also occurs without genes being able to evolve.
Or that these mutations, which he says mutations, right? Which is exactly what evolution studies.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how are we not studying it?
It doesn't study mutation specifically. It doesn't need mutation. It studies change in allelic frequency in populations.
Yes.
So technically, you could have a system that never undergoes mutation but still evolve.
Oh, there's actually a term for that. I forgot what it's called, but there's specific biological models of population genetics that rely on that.
Really?
Yeah.
You're not talking about epigenetic?
No, not epigenetic change. It's like it's just some like model graph that you learn in like Bio 1, pretty much. Where you rely. It's a population that has assumptions.
Population. Okay.
Yeah, it's a population genetic study, and it assumes like there's no mutations, and the whole population is like interbreeding with each other, stuff like that.
Right.
It's just like an ideal thing. Yeah.
There's a lot of idealized modeling that's done, and they kind of misunderstand that too. Well, Jensen and Tompkins and Sanford will use these ideal models, and they will claim that those are the models that we believe work. But the ideal models are meant to slice out everything else except for this one thing, like basically a population exchanging alleles. And the actual evolution has all of these models turned on at once, and that is the problem. There's no computer on Earth, or probably never will be, that could model a population of any reasonable size, not accurately. Okay, so we could have cured cancer if it wasn't for evolutionists. And these guys here, like, they're geniuses. Wait until they start straightening out NASA. They get to that.
Whatever. It's ridiculous.
I'd say as a sidebar, one of the things that always cracks me up, and this definitely applies to suspension of rational thought. Okay, folks, we don't know how males and females exist.
What?
How in the, which is studying evolution.
He brings up amoebas. We have single cellular, like eukaryotic organisms that have not necessarily sex, but they have genetic admixture going on where they can like transfer genes back and forth to like increase genetic diversity within populations. So that's how males and females developed. I don't know what he means by that question. Like
I don't know. Maybe he doesn't know about the birds and the bees. I'm not sure, but
I'm not sure Maddox was taught puberty, hence the need for alcohol and drugs in his life.
it's possible. But he's complaining that we don't know how sex or sexual reproduction occurred. That is studied by evolutionists. I mean, that's one of the big areas of study, is trying to figure out that whole story about how sexual reproduction happened. So he's complaining about us studying evolution, and now he's going to complain that we don't know how something happens because we haven't studied evolution enough.
I'm pretty sure there are pretty good studies on the development of sex and like gender, well, not genders, but the development of sexes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I have a whole book on it somewhere in my library on the emergence of sexual reproduction. Have not cracked it open yet, but anyway.
We cannot explain this.
Yeah, we can't.
Yet.
Yeah.
No way.
Maybe.
This is a fundamental component to a gigantic percentage of life. We don't know how this happened or what would have been required for this to occur. Our variety of theories we've come up with have all collapsed.
Have they?
Okay, so that's basically the definition of a logical fallacy. We don't know X, therefore Y is impossible.
Right.
Maddox, where did you study philosophy from again?
Like I say, it's very new to him. He just found it last week, so you got to give him a break. We don't want to pick on him. I think Praise That I Am taught him what dualism was 2 weeks ago. So,
but I mean, if we back apply the same logic he's using, oh, we don't understand all the ways that God interacts with the world. Well, I guess he doesn't exist then.
Yeah.
Well, that's the logic you're giving us, Maddox.
I just looked up evolution of sexual reproduction, and I got 2,100,000 results. So yeah, it's very poorly understood.
Poorly understood.
I looked it up on Google Scholar.
Yep. Okay. Where are we at here? We're at 106. Where do they correct NASA? 107, I think.
Per their own argument, the whole reproduction piece is,
Was that from
a fundamental element to evolution, right? But you can't.
Evolution's at 150. Evolution's at 150 years of failure.
Come on, huh? Say that again.
Evolution's at 150 years of failures, nothing but failures, and it's still called a fact. I was just chucking that in there. I'll shut up now. You can keep going. Sorry.
No. I agree with you completely on that. It's very ironic. At what point?
You say, Bob?
Please, name one failure of evolution.
Yeah. Well, I think they mention like there are two papers that come out and one paper disagrees with the other paper, one paper corrects another paper. They call that a failure.
That's literally what happens in all of research.
I know.
And also that's kind of the point of the scientific method, right?
Yes.
To have multiple scientists like cross-checking each other to make sure that we understand the topic better.
Right. In the last 20 years, we have learned such a tremendous amount about evolution and genetics, and the two are so tied together, you could not separate one from the other. Well, it's impossible to study the genome without studying mutations and natural selection and all the other things that go with it.
Frequency.
Yeah. It's impossible.
Do your theories have to be completely repurposed, modified, and
there it
in
is.
some context, some aspects take 180s, and yet you still claim that it is proven beyond all doubt?
There it is. Basically, any modification to a theory is a failure, according to these guys.
The issue with that statement is that science doesn't prove things.
Yeah.
We show things within a reasonable metric of certainty. But if we were never be able to be wrong about anything, well, that would kind of be worthless.
Yeah. I'm also still stuck on he said it's like 150 years of scientific failure, despite having made multiple confirmed predictions.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the hallmark of a good theory. If predictions can be made and confirmed, well, we have that.
Well, for 150 years, we have been going at a 180-degree angle to what it says in the Bible. And I think that's a problem that they have. We've been heading in the opposite direction from the Bible for over 150 years. Or at least their account of the Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's not the... That's why I love to make this use the phrase, in any other context, this would be considered irrational. In any other context, you insert whatever component of evolution. And I'm like, I don't know what to say at this point. Like, you agree with me that in any other context, my point is correct.
No, I haven't heard anybody say that, actually, Maddox.
That his point is correct?
I haven't heard anybody say that any point you make is correct on any occasion. So I'm really confused where that one comes from.
I don't know. In any other context, I don't know. He keeps bringing that up in the last couple of days. He found that phrase. I'm not sure.
But it gets worse, because if in any other context you're correct, that means in this context you're wrong.
Yeah.
Did you know that every single anomaly in our solar system...
Now, here's where they're going to straighten NASA out. And it goes on for quite a while, so I'm not sure if we want to listen to it all, but...
It's the planets. You know, they always say it's an asteroid did it. I mean, you look at it. It's I wrote up this thing, right, that I saw on this show, and it's just like, it's just everything we're talking about. It all ties in. It's just completely irrational. I mean, it's like...
Pick me for this. Because shows are always the best source of science information.
Right.
So news never sensationalizes things in science. They never use exaggerative or creative language to entice their audiences. Really?
Yeah.
Come on.
They go on for, I think, 15 or 20 minutes, or at least 15 minutes, talking about how we're all wrong about Mars, that dust can create valleys on Mars or something, canyons, and that there was never any water on Mars, that we don't know what we're doing, that all of our calculations are off on all the planets. And so you gotta wonder if these two are the ones responsible for putting the rovers on Mars and touching them down, with like a 5-foot margin of error on another fucking planet, I mean,
isn't there still like currently ice on Mars?
Yeah.
I gotta wonder first when these people learn to read.
And then they go on about the moon and moon dust, and moon rocks should be more iron, or should have more iron if the moon came from the earth, and just one thing after another. But I think pretty much the whole video, or the whole rest of the video, is spent on that crap. So I just wanted to... I don't even want to listen to any of it.
I didn't know you became an expert on the moon.
They're real experts. I mean, these guys are rocket scientists, and they're straightening NASA out for the next 10 or 15 minutes. They talk about all the failings of astronomy, and how evolutionists cause that problem. Basically, it's the evolutionary mindset that made us wrong about the planets. But you got to kind of wonder how we put that rover on Mars and how we landed people on the moon, because I don't think these assholes were there when we put people on the moon.
They're in the room. You just don't know. They're in disguise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we did that with computers that were like, what, 1/1 millionth as powerful as your watch is today, your iPhone. or a billionth. Anyway, okay. So I don't know. Let's see what else. See what else they get into over here.
Or collapsing into, not zooming in and then zooming back out. Like what the? And I remember when I was reading through that, it was something. I forget where I was reading about this, but I was sitting there thinking, like, I don't know how how much of this stuff I can take seriously that I'm finding from, supposedly credible institutions.
What's happening?
When they're trying to explain XYZ anomaly with something like this, And I mean, heck, just the moon, the impact theory for the moon's formation. I mean, when you really think about like
capture theory, impact theory, freaking all those different stupid theories, none of them work.
Yeah, they go on.
Anyway. I can't tell you what Kepler's equations of motions are, but I know they don't work.
I'm pretty sure that these guys have a physics degree and cosmology, and that NASA is probably calling them right now to get their opinion on the next space shop. I'm guessing. What do you think?
I'm sure that Jason here is secretly an aerospace engineer.
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah, he's an actual rocket scientist. Because if you get time, like if you have a problem with low blood pressure, listen starting at 107. Listen to the next 20 minutes where they straighten NASA out. Pretty interesting. Why is iTunes up? Okay, I'm going to switch the other video.
Thank God.
That'll be fun. Let's see. I'm going to do everything right this time. Watch me. Watch me do it right.
There will be consequences for failure.
Yep. Well, it'll disprove everything if I fail or if I reverse myself.
The fate of evolution rests in your hands.
Rant plus discussion with a few atheists. Okay. Oh,
is that what it's titled now?
Huh?
Is that what it's titled now?
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, discussion with a few atheists. So, let's see. We are not a cocaine. We are not like a cocaine. Oh, I like letters and material.
The information, for example, stolen in an old school punch card. The information was not.
Oh, these things are off again. Hang on a second.
Where have I heard that before?
Well, to me, it seems to be physical. I don't see a means by which information can be.
Okay, I'm not back far enough. Bookmark program fail. I got to use my software.
That's why we need to, if we need to posit that some kind of supernatural thing is taking place, then we need evidence that the supernatural thing is taking place. The mechanism we need to at least observe some parallel that the mechanism that we're proposing can do what we're proposing it can do. The only thing we have now is biological agents or maybe computers or whatever, robots, being able to do stuff and build stuff. So they have to have some kind of physical body and a physical means of constructing things, as opposed to a supernatural something for which that is the thing we don't have evidence for. So if we're proposing that, then
is digital information.
I'm not ruling it out, but it would be speculation.
Is digital information physical? Is it material or immaterial?
This is what he was asking me in our debate. And, this is, and Emo's going to do the same thing I did, I think.
The information itself, is it not stored in the physical components?
What it's stored in
is not part of the physical component.
What it's stored in is not relative.
Right, it's not relevant.
Relevant to the information itself.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. Especially when it comes to DNA.
Yeah.
How exactly did he become a programmer?
If we store DNA, well, he thinks. Where does he say it here?
Expression of it might be through a physical medium, but the information itself, is it material or immaterial? In the context of what we're leveraging right now to have this conversation.
What?
I don't know.
Well, to to me, it seems to be physical. I don't see a means by which information can be non-physical and that like exist
No, I said
in a
material.
non-physical sense. I don't really see how that could happen.
I said material or immaterial.
Oh, you said material. Yeah. By
What does he mean by that distinction?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Because he called photons immaterial. Because
Yeah.
they have mass.
Immaterial something? Yeah, is immaterial something just that doesn't have mass?
I think he's kind of got this twisted up in his brain. Like that makes a difference. Why would it make a difference? I mean, information can be encoded in a series of waves, basically, which are kind of immaterial, kind of.
I mean, information is also very relative, right? Like, I wouldn't be getting any information out of a book that's written in like Mandarin.
Right.
Does that make the information there immaterial?
I don't know.
Despite the information being exclusive to like that one specific book, just because I can't read it.
He was if I'm not mistaken, of just because you can't understand the material doesn't mean it isn't there.
Yeah.
Well, they like to okay, they'll say, okay, if you have a story written in Chinese, and then you have a story written in English, and it's the same story, then what was transferred between the two? You have two different books, right? So there's something about the two that is the same, and they will try to say that that is an immaterial transfer, basically, that there's something non-physical because it's the same story in two different places. I think Ron Garrett mentioned that he made the point in his debate with Sell that information always it's always a relation. Yeah, he did. He made a relationship between two things. And in semiotics, they call it a relationship between three things. It's like a triangle. So there's always a relationship. Like Ron Garrett said that, if you open the car door and a light goes on, then there's information. There's the state of one affects the state of the other because of the information, that sort of thing. But they're both physical. And it's how we think about it.
Yeah. Although, I was saying, like, what conclusion? Sorry, I keep interrupting you. What conclusion would it support if you concede that information is immaterial, anyways? Is that just like, oh, well, immaterial things can exist?
If it's immaterial, then Maddox, if information is immaterial, and if there is information in DNA, then it had to have had an intelligent designer. So it had to have an intelligence. That
seems like a non sequitur to me, though. Like just in general,
it is.
But it's his whole spiel, and like at the very end of the debate, I finally got around to asking him how he gets from his if to his then.
Yeah.
What is the inference? And he never makes a case for that. All he does is he makes a case for DNA being more and more complicated, the cell being more complicated, and therefore more information. Therefore, it had to have an intelligence. And he never connects because to him, he already believes in this fairy intelligence God thing. So for him, it's like a no-brainer. And he can't understand. And that's what he calls logical, plausible, and probable. Because he cannot understand how anybody could not see it the way he sees it. And then he goes on calling us closed-minded for quite a bit in both of these videos. So, but I'm not sure what he means by that, because it seems to me that he's kind of closed.
Closed-minded being we don't agree with him.
Exactly. We don't see his inference because we don't believe in the God. And he's already got it all figured out, and he's made that connection. So it has to be intelligence. I don't think there's any way to penetrate that idea in this man. And he is going to keep spewing garbage. And basically it can be summed up in a couple of sentences. like I just did, about making that inference from complexity to intelligent design. So, I don't know if...
Do you mean physical stuff? Any material you mean like metaphysical stuff?
No, I don't mean metaphysical. I mean,
okay. So
for example, light is considered immaterial. It has no mass.
Whoever said that light is considered immaterial? I mean, who talks like
Nobody.
Nobody? That's what I thought. Well, we found somebody.
Photons are still particles, even if they have zero mass.
Yeah. And equating the physical with material or with matter, and then saying that energy destroys physicalism, right, is an idea that was kind of floated by some idiots back about 70 years ago, and it's ridiculous. Anyway, if you want me to pause, if you say pause kind of loudly, I will pause.
Okay.
That's protocol. Protocol.
Right? But nobody denies that light exists, even though it is immaterial. The information, for example, stolen in an old school punch card, the information was not the plastic.
It's paper. I'm sorry, it's paper, Maddox. We didn't punch plastic.
The information was the holes, where there was literally nothing. And it was derived from the ability to interpret and translate the semantic information that was housed inside of the syntax of the binary code. And now the outcome...
Sometimes I can't get over how he butchers a sentence.
The medium with which contains information and the outcome can be physical, but the elements that enable it to occur in terms of the prescriptive information that's required are immaterial. And the medium which housed it is not relevant. Now, in the context of the creator, for example, the limitations you're trying to place on them requiring a physical form in the context that we're talking about does not apply to the immaterial element of the equation that enables life to exist and is the single most important component of what enables life to exist, which is the prescriptive information as well as the organized structure which accounts for the foreknowledge of the end outcome.
Okay. Now, I can't wait until I can get a transcript of that, because I think I could write a doctorate thesis on what he just did. I mean, the twists and the turns in that sentence are just mind-boggling. And I think this guy is a genius.
Yeah, I got lost somewhere along the way. I think he took a right, and I kept going straight.
He's excellent at crafting a word salad.
It is so deep. I mean, the depth of those statements. I mean, it just went in and out, and then he mentioned the creator, and like, wow. I have no idea what it means, but I'm sure it's like there's something really. We have discovered genius here. I'm sure we just need to look closer.
I wouldn't question anything Maddox says, because Maddox has never got anything right or anything wrong.
And as we are...
He has yet to say anything coherent.
Discovering more and more in the context of quantum mechanics, we are now discovering that the measurement component is not limited to the quantum level. It applies all the way up to the macro level. And they discovered this last year.
Okay, what the hell is he talking about?
I really have no idea. Is he saying like quantum principles apply to macro levels?
Yeah, well, they discovered this last year that the quantum incoherence applies at macro levels, and I think there was some paper that was talking about
the largest molecule that we've ever had like observable like quantum like wavelengths and stuff for was like the buckyballs at Rice University, which was a while ago.
Okay.
Anything with mass exhibits like quantum behavior, but just a wavelength that, like my wavelength frequency is so tiny that it's undetectable. You know, my wavelength is like probably less than a quark. Well, it's definitely less than a quark. It's like probably 1/1,000,000th of a quark or something like that in size. So you're not going to be able to detect quantum behavior in something with reasonably large mass.
He's talking about some paper that he gleaned or read some pop article about it. I don't know, but I don't know which one because yeah. Next time we talk to him, we have to ask him for his source on that. How do you think he'll respond? He hates that when you ask him for a source. If you want to drive this guy crazy, ask him for a source twice, like 2 times in a row. Where did he rage quit on you? We should play that part, eh? Or he rage?
Yeah,
rage
you should have a timestamp for it.
This timestamp program sucks. I have to find a better method.
And when you think that if something that is immaterial can directly impact the physical, and we have now proven that beyond doubt all the way up to retrocausality and rewriting of time in the context of the measurement equation or measurement problem, then we now have proof beyond doubt that the immaterial can be affected by the material and vice versa. So
what the fuck is he talking about?
I genuinely don't know.
Oh, man.
Where I'm going with all that is trying to limit the creator to the purely physical in order to create the outcomes that we observe in the physical is not looking at the big picture of what is now known.
Trying to limit the creator? Is that what he's saying?
That's what I heard.
That's what I heard.
That was in there somewhere. Yeah.
So who's trying to do that?
I don't know.
I guess we are. But let's see.
Apparently Maddox is with all 3 of his brain cells.
You got to have that third one because that's the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
If you have 2 brain cells, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Go ahead, man.
Okay. So in the same way, you would argue, for example, that observing that certain chemical structures that usually associated with life can't form naturally, doesn't follow that the entire life form can be constructed that way. I see no evidence that the immaterial, or whatever a god is, could construct or build things in the way that creationists would say that they did stuff, or that they can be able to manipulate matter in the way that they say it can.
Emo's thinking right now, what the hell have I got myself to do?
He seems just as confused as we are, and we have the ability to stop and pause.
How do I get out of this?
So,
saying
yeah,
because
so that's what I'm saying. If we have some kind of
saying that this component can form is like saying because rocks exist, a 2,000 mile long 10-foot wall, it's reasonable to conclude that wall could build itself because a rock exists. I mean,
no, that's not what
I make this point on a regular basis.
He constantly does that.
No matter. That's not what that means at all. What it means for something to be able to form on its own means that it doesn't require the insistence of an intelligent agent actually being involved with that process. So it's not saying that this process is somehow going to magically evolve itself and take care of things. It's saying that this kind of process is sufficient by the rules of chemistry and physics for it to form. It doesn't need an intelligence enable to be what it is or enable to form at all. So I don't know where you get that from.
Yep.
in no other
Are we ready to go on?
Yeah.
context would it be considered rational that it is not the logical, plausible, and probable conclusion that the intelligent agent was not just a possibility, but the requirement for something to exist? And cool, this boulder fell off the top of a mountain, shattered into a bazillion pieces. Now there's a crap load of stones. You come back a year later and there's a wall, and you say, well, that's interesting because those rocks were there. That's why this wall is now here. I mean, that's the direct equivalent. Oh yeah, I mean, if you could manipulate gravity and through an undirected process and had the energy to physically move.
Did the video pause?
I don't think so. Oh no. Okay. Yeah, that's it. The power went out. Okay. So, yeah, let's see. Where are we here? There's Athena, and here you are, Immutable. You want to go to the rage? Do you want to go through any of your stuff?
I don't care.
Okay. Well, I want to go to the rage quit part here. Where are you? You're there. You're okay. You're here. You're here. Let's see.
Anyway, as I've said, go Google it. No, I'll look through the.
Oh. Okay. Where does this start?
Present within eukaryotic cells? No, and that's not what's trying to be proved. Because your initial claim was that we cannot form lipid biolayers.
Okay, so actually my original claim was that life cannot exist without, and again, this is accepted, no less than 400 proteins and 500,000 base pair genome. And
okay, if I can ask, where are you getting that number from?
Dude, go Google it. That is, I've read this multiple locations.
Maddox, I can Google.
The point I'm making is
Maddox, I wasn't done.
Okay. Let's lower the number. Let's say it's 100.
Maddox, the number doesn't concern me. It's where you're getting the number from.
Go and Google it.
Can you please provide a source?
Anyway, as I've said, go Google it. Now I'll look through the billion papers that I have and go find it. I'm not doing it right now while I'm discussing this.
Maddox.
You can get
there are two times separately in this conversation where you.
Okay, so
Maddox, I wasn't done.
It's funny because his name is Immutable.
Anyway,
there are two times.
Did he just kick you?
Yep, he did.
Immutable is taking the obvious tactic when he's being called out on his BS attempt to explain the complexities that are being pointed out, and the improbabilities and the implausibilities of the position that he's taking. Being, give me a source. Well, dude, this is a well-accepted premise. I'm not going to go search through the 100+ papers that I've got to go find this exact thing on the fly. It's not how I operate. I don't operate at your leisure.
It's not how he operates.
I say go Google it. It's a findable premise. The point.
He's constantly swapping fact and premise, and it kind of drives me crazy.
I am ultimately making. Let's say it's only a.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, it'll be clear the reason I'm asking for it, like after I get kicked again. But
yeah,
100 different proteins are required, and let's say it's only 100,000 base pair genome. Without the proteins and the lipid bilayers and the appropriate sequences all existing in simultaneous function, the outcome of life is accepted to be, it's not even remotely a plausible position to take. And
according to
argue, one of these might be able to form by itself to explain the simultaneous requirement, not only in time, but also in geographic space to somehow account for the extraordinarily, just mind-bendingly ridiculous conclusion that this can happen through undirected process being the more reasonable conclusion, the more likely conclusion than something that in the lab we can't recreate, even if you have all of the pre-existing parts already accounted for. It's nuts.
Oh, Immutable's back.
Well, thank you for cutting me off. The point I was trying to make with that was, number one, you provided 2 claims that have not been sourced. And the reason that's important is, number one.
And by the way, just a second before you continue, if you want to get kicked off again, you can shut up. This is my channel, and if I tell you, if I mute you, that means you stop talking.
Maddox.
That's the end of you.
And I did stop talking, if you noticed.
Yeah, you
It's not that way.
Yeah. This guy's a piece of work. That's amazing.
Maybe the current way that we have cells, like there are necessary proteins that you need for necessary processes, right? Like metabolic pathways, ATP synthesis, that kind of stuff, right? But that's not saying that the earliest protocells or, even earlier stuff like in the RNA world would have had any of that or needed any of that.
Right. Every time you talk to him about abiogenesis, he will run forward to a completely fully developed eukaryotic cell, and he'll start talking about the ribosomes. And then when you start talking about the ribosomes and you start talking about evolution, he'll start talking about abiogenesis. And then you go over and meet him there, and he's back again to the other side. And this is a tactic that creationists continually use in their dialogue, and you'll find it everywhere. We should have a name for it because it just throws you off. I mean, they're trying to. They want you to tell them how the entire ribosomal complex in a human being was formed out of clay, which is the whole fucking story. I mean, that's a 4.2 billion year story. How are you going to do that in a debate? It's kind of a trick. So I don't know. I don't know if this guy is really worth much more time from anybody, unless he comes up with something. Well, there's what is this one paper? Let's see, the dichotomy. I don't know. Do you want to listen to any more of him, or want to just talk, or what do you want to do?
I don't know. It's up to you.
Oh, whatever.
Oh, let's look at this for a minute. Hang on a second. Share, Chrome tab. Oh, if I don't click on it, it won't show it at the top. So you don't need sound for this one, I don't think. Dichotomy. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with these guys. Can you see that okay? The paper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is David J. D'Onofrio and David Abel. And I have 2 books by D'Onofrio. And he's got a lot of brilliant work that he does on information in the cell and all that stuff. But apparently when he got this paper published, I'm not sure if this is the journal or not, the editor got fired for publishing him because he will go through here and I think he does it Alt F. Evolution. Yes. No, I guess not in this one. But in one of his papers, they start talking about evolutionists and they're complaining about evolution thinking and all of that. And they show programs. This is where Maddox got all of his information. Basically, here's the programs that he's talking about with the FNLs, all that stuff. And right on the top here is where he got the idea of prescriptive information. And this kind of set him off. And also D'Onofrio and Abel talk about ribosomal pausing either in this paper or some other papers they have. So Maddox got his source material from these guys. Well, if you look at them, there's PZ Meyers did a. I wonder if I could find it. Will it keep the same tab up? I wonder. PZ Meyers and the PZ Meyers did a video today on Matt Paul. Matt Paul was going on about panspermia. How do you spell D'Onofrio? D'Onofrio. Let's see if it comes up. PZ Meyers, Wikipedia. I'm probably not going to. Images. How much science should accommodate religion? Not going to find it. Anyway, we'll go back. I do have a link for it somewhere, but anyway, PZ Meyers checked out D'Onofrio, and he's listed as he's got all these credentials. He's a director of some center for intelligence research or something like that, and a bunch of other things. So PZ Meyers Googled his address that he gave for all these institutions that he's a director of, and he came up with a house like on a city, like a suburban street. It's basically this big institution for research, and nobody's taking D'Onofrio seriously anymore, and Abel's kind of the same way. Both of them, both of these guys disassociate themselves from the ID movement because they know that it's poison. So they won't admit that they're IDers, but that's all they come up with. And here's the prescriptive information stuff. So one of the keys to understanding Maddox is knowing that everything he got, including ribosomal pausing, came from these two fellas. And then he went to the Royal Society, and they did a entire journal on biosemiotics and information. And I printed out all the papers, and I went through most of them and read a few seriously. Nowhere in there do they find for ID. I mean, nobody talks about ID in those papers. These are serious scientists that are working on PZ Meyers hates those guys, but there's kind of a little fight going on between the information people and the old school chemistry people. So I don't know. It's interesting. Anyway, that's interesting information if you ever want to deal with Maddox, and we just told him live that we're on to him. So
yeah, I have that paper pulled up, so I'm gonna read it after I get off this.
Yeah, I bet he hasn't read this paper actually or understood it. These guys, they do some pretty neat work, I think. With I don't know, but they're you can tell that they have a direction. They're heading toward intelligent design.
You mean the dudes who wrote the paper?
These two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that isn't the case with the Royal Society people that are into biosemiotics. They have a different idea. But apparently, what the hell is his name? What was the guy? I keep forgetting his name. One of the guys that's really big in this field is PZ Meyers kind of goes off on him. He did it today. Let me see. PZ Meyers and panspermia. He calls it the panspermia mafia. Yeah, there we go. Free thought blogs. He's talking about basically the creationists are going crazy now because somehow a bunch of guys got a paper published about the possibility of the genes for an octopus, I think, coming from another planet, and somehow they got into a mainstream journal. And
you're talking about genes, or are you talking about the
genes?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the protein that they were talking about. I think in Maddox's Hangout.
It's worse than that. They were actually talking about genes, like genetic material. The Walking Dead. Let's see. Anyway, he goes through a pretty big thing, but he did a video on it today, which is pretty cool, and it was on YouTube. Let's see, Panspermia Mafia, YouTube. Anyway, Matt Paul is going on about how ridiculous this is, and he says that evolution is teaching this stuff. Coalescence of stupidity. What the heck is that? Do you know PZ Meyers?
I've heard of him before.
Yeah, I've watched some of his content.
Okay.
He's a professor at like Michigan State or something, right?
Minnesota, University of Minnesota in Moorhead.
Ah.
I've got 2 of his textbooks that he uses for. In fact, that's where I learned a bit about embryology from one of his textbooks. He teaches a class on evolution and a class on embryology, I think. I'm trying to find the guy I'm thinking about. Oh, here we go. Let's watch this stuff.
Can't hear it.
Yeah. Why?
You probably forgot to share audio.
Oh,
Man, it's the amoebas again. I swear.
yeah, amoebas again. I didn't share. I can defend myself this time. I didn't share audio because I was showing you a paper and I didn't need it. Okay.
Always got something.
So like, I do. Okay.
Normal pile of movement.
How about now?
You'll see what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Now, this is the hokey stuff, folks. So since they think that we all came from an amoeba that found some other amoeba to marry, of course, because you got to have 2. Russell found some each, slowly evolved into where we are today. Let's just grant all that.
Okay, wait a minute. We haven't come to the good part just yet. This is pedestrian creationist trash. No, we didn't evolve from amoebae. They're their own separate line. And no, amoebae and our distant ancestors are capable of asexual reproduction. So talking about having getting married is just ludicrously ignorant. But here's the goofy part, particularly the goofy part that caught my attention.
Squids and octopuses have a different genetic build than any other creature in the world. So scientists have come to the conclusion that they couldn't have come from any other sea creature. So here's what evolutionary theory states about how they got here. Evolution says, or evolutionists claim, it says one plausible explanation, in our view, is that the genes are likely new extraterrestrial imports to Earth. These scientists declare that, quote, the squid eggs hitched a ride to Earth on the back of asteroids.
Citation?
That is what evolution teaches.
Oh, they got one.
I am not kidding. I was in an interview with a friend of mine he's an actual creation scientist. Now, him and I don't see eye to eye on everything, but he brought this up and I thought he was joking with me. I said, are you serious? We cut for a moment. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This is what they teach? He said, yeah, it's what they teach. I looked it up. Sure enough, evolution teaches that they hitched a ride on the back of asteroids. Doesn't that?
Where in the hell have you ever seen that in a textbook anywhere?
Nowhere. I've heard Ken Hogan say that before, though.
I know.
Also, we do know like where octopi fit in the tree of life. They're mollusks, who are spiralians, who are protostomes, who are animals. Like they're not like aliens, and we've just never seen them. Although if they were, that would do a pretty good job of disproving evolution.
But there is an interesting source for this, and it's kind of surprising, actually.
Fun.
All right, that is remarkable. A creationist actually looked something up, and they actually reported it accurately.
Okay.
There is a paper, a couple of them actually, that claim squid are not related to any other organisms on Earth, and that they arrived here as eggs on meteors, or actually comets, a few 100 million years ago. Matt has to leave that last part off because he's a young Earth creationist, so he's not going to mention that the paper he cited argues for 100 million year old Earth and longer. What he doesn't mention, though, is that this is the work of fringe crackpots who managed to get it published in a scientific journal with the assistance of a sympathetic crackpot editor. Where he lies is when he claims that evolution teaches that nonsense. It certainly does not.
I mean,
I
evolution.
happen to know the paper he quotes.
I was just going to say, evolution doesn't teach anything, and evolutionary biologists in classrooms are definitely not teaching that.
Right. And talking about evolution like it's some kind of a, I don't know, like it's a creature, like
It's a monolith.
or a club or something, or maybe evolution arrived on an asteroid.
For the bouncers for the evolution club.
Yeah.
Without citing it. Here it is.
Okay.
Okay. It was published in Progress in Biophysics and Molecular Biology, a legitimate journal, but one of its editors-in-chief is Dennis Noble.
Okay. Dennis Noble is a guy. I've got a couple of his books. I like some of the stuff he has to say, but he is like, he's really old. He's really brilliant, and he's kind of gone off the deep a little bit in a couple of ways. But I mean, he's got an interesting point about sort of ushering in this new biosemiotics information theory version of biology. And P.Z. Meyers kind of hates him. And a lot of other people do too. But anyway, he'll explain it here.
A cardiac physiologist who decided that evolution was false, that the modern synthesis needed to be discarded, and that a version of Lamarckism is the true mechanism of evolution.
That's kind of true.
The lead author is Ted Steele, a credible immunologist who dived off the deep end with claims that evolution is a neo-Lamarckian process. Neither of them are trustworthy sources on the subject of evolutionary theory. They are the fringe of the fringe, and this paper demonstrates why. Also listed as authors on this paper are the Wickramasinghe family, the Wallaces, Brigg-Pleiss, etc., etc., etc. The whole dang cabal I've dubbed the panspermia mafia. These are people who are committed to the religious belief that all life originated in space, and that even now alien viruses are dropping on us to cause new diseases.
That'd be pretty cool, though.
They also tend to believe that there are...
What's that?
I just said it'd be pretty cool, like, if that were the case.
Yeah, and if
except for like the virus part, but just the fact that like space is pooping out organisms to Earth.
Right. Or if we originated in space and it was brought by a dude named Jesus or something. I mean, that would be cool. It'd be a cool story. But we'd have to we'd love to talk to him to find out how they evolved. That's what I would want to know. Anyway, this is kind of interesting. You should watch the video. I'm not sure. It's 21 minutes. It's up to you guys whether you want to pick it apart. P.Z. Meyers is pretty cool, but he obviously doesn't like Dennis Noble, and because he doesn't like Dennis Noble, I don't know. Noble has like he interviews like the Prime Minister of England. He's got a TV show now. And he does all kinds of stuff, and he's really out there on the fringe. He is into this Lamarckian evolution idea based on epigenetics, I think. But some of the stuff he says, it's worth thinking about. You have to have an open mind to all of this new wave crap. Not that new wave though. Not this new wave. I mean, this is bullshit. So anyway. I don't know what else he gets. Yeah, he goes through the paper in some detail, I think, but it's worth watching. Pretty cool. Okay. Anyway, the creationists have mentioned this a few times. I heard Kent Hovind mention it, and it came up a few other times. So we're going to be hearing more about this crap. Every now and then a crackpot gets something published. Well, D'Onofrio and Abel, basically crackpots getting something published. It happens. I don't know. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do with these guys? And we haven't even started on standing for truth yet, because for him, I want to do really good work because I want to dig really deeply into some of his stuff.
Yeah,
his gallops.
Stanek seems like I've never interacted with him or anything, but he seems like a really nice dude. But his claims, and also it seems like his claims are a little more in depth, I guess, than a lot of the other creationists. Like he seems like he actually like reads the papers and actually like yeah. It seems like he has a better understanding though in general though.
Oh, we got somebody that actually showed up and chatted. I don't know if he's still here or not, but Casio Mato Toyella?
Oh, I know who that is.
Oh, you know him? Okay.
Yeah, her, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if he's still watching or not, but still kind of hung up on, or he or she, how pissed they are about evolution being brought into the education system. How's that holding back? Yeah. Anyway, I don't watch my chat very seriously, so this is probably
the video is echoing for you.
Oh, it is. Really? I'm echoing? How? Am I still echoing?
Yes, it is definitely still echoing.
Really? So what?
I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know if I'm talking to you from the fast or.
So, what is playing? I'm trying to figure out what's playing. I don't see any. Yes, you are talking to me from the past.
Oh, I think you have the screen for the live stream open, so it's still playing the live stream.
Alien artifacts on nearby planets.
Let me stop that. Okay, how's it now?
I do not hear any echo.
Okay, so I don't know what happened. I'm not sure what I did exactly.
Okay.
Anyway.
Oh no, I heard the echo. It's back.
Really?
Yeah.
Where in the hell is it coming from? StreamYard. Well, I will try muting. You guys talk. Okay, I'll mute. You guys talk.
So, what's going on?
Oh gosh, are you hearing the echo too, Immutable?
I'm not.
Are you hearing? You're hearing it with me muted?
I'm an idiot. Sorry. I'm an idiot. All right, carry on.
Okay. See, Immutable. It wasn't my fault.
Well,
it's something that I did not.
Oh my god! I keep getting tripped up with the StreamYard frame and the actual video open, and I thought I had the StreamYard open, but I had the video open, and I was hearing the echo through that.
Oh, okay. I was like, that's kind of weird. I know that speed of sound here can be a klutz, but geesh.
Yeah, that's something that I did not screw up. We need to note this.
Yeah. I'll just have this silent.
Well, I have so many monitors that I have so many browser tabs open that I have no idea what they all are. It's a horrible thing. Anyway, what else? I think we should go after Standing for Truth next, but we need to be a little. Oh, I'm talking to him tomorrow on this channel, but I'm pretty sure he's not going to show up. We'll see.
We'll see. What time is it supposed to be for?
Let's see. It's supposed to be set up for, I believe it's 2 p.m.
Right.
So 3 p.m. for you guys.
I'm Central as well.
What's up?
I'm Central.
Oh, you are? Oh.
Uh-huh.
So 2 p.m. Central. Which is the only time zone as far as I can tell. As far as, I don't know. but that will be interesting if he shows up. I guess Sel is going to debate somebody tomorrow. I thought it was Sel. And let's see, who's supposed to be lining up here? Hang on a second here. Should be good for tomorrow. Okay, no, Ron Garrett and John Maddox are going to debate tomorrow. Apparently, they're confirming a date. That will be interesting. Yeah, I think that's probably tomorrow night sometime. Well, Ron likes to do things earlier, I think. And then I have Ron Garrett and Sal Cordova on Friday. We're going to be talking. It's that little series I call God or Daddy, Why Did God Make Yeks?
Yeah, that's another thing I love, the term yeks.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about them on Rational Skepticism a long time ago. Quite a bit. That's where I learned most of the terminology. Young Earth creationist. Let's see, Rat Skep. Where's Rat Skep? Pretty cool. I think we could go offline. What do you think?
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't care.
Okay, so by end of broadcast, we'll all stay here. I'll try.
Theoretically, that's what's supposed to happen.
It's supposed to, but nothing's happening. Oh, end broadcast.